Good evening. My name is George Bracy, and this is Trans World. I have with me today some distinguished guests from the Tenderloin, and what we're going to talk about today is the perception and misperception of the Tenderloin. So I'll have my guests introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Kim. I live in the Kelly Cullen building. I've been in the Tenderloin since about 2012.
My name is Michael Thomas Angelo. I live at the Ambassador Hotel, and I've in the Tenderloin, Sun Mason and Eddie. I've lived in the Tenderloin area for about 15 years.
My name is Jesse James Johnson. I've also lived in the Tenderloin for maybe a little over 15 years. I live in a private SRO.
Yes, and although I started my residency there, I've since has moved across the street to the South Market. But I consider the Tenderloin my community, and we're going to talk about the issues concerning the Tenderloin, which is gentrification, the lack of services in terms of redefining what the community has a need for. And the best people that can speak to that are these that are sitting around this table. I'll start with Jesse Johnson. Will you please speak about the voter disparity
Sure.
and your involvement with some of the community activism that's going on?
Sure. Right now, one of the new projects we're working on is called Tenderloin Votes, and it's an effort to increase the number of voters in the Tenderloin and other central neighborhood precincts. Um, I think one of the reasons that politicians and the powers that be have ignored our needs is because we don't vote. They're not afraid of us. We don't have a we our voice isn't loud enough, and so we're hoping that by increasing the number of voters at the polls, we also increase our community's ability to negotiate with the powers that be. Um, I can read something about something of a mission statement. First of all, I want to say, our slogan is "Imagination is our greatest weapon against gentrification." And I think that's the slogan that all the efforts here that we're talking about here today, can fall under. And it is to vote is to invest your power in the future of our communities. Your vote is our voice. We are Tenderloin Votes, an informal, ad hoc, nonpartisan network comprised of residents of the Tenderloin, the 6th Street corridor, Soma, and the Mid-Market Street area, educating ourselves, enlisting allies, urging loved ones, encouraging neighbors to be voters. We are in a fight for our homes, for the integrity of our neighborhoods, for our lives. Because our neighborhoods are the epicenter of a real estate boom that threatens to wipe us off the urbanscape, our resources are few and our options are limited. The ballot is a weapon we cannot afford to ignore. The ballot is a weapon that many people have forgotten is a weapon. We believe increasing our numbers at the polls increases the possibilities of who we and what our neighborhoods might become. The backbone of our network are those residents most vulnerable to being displaced by the hyper-gentrification of our neighborhoods. This includes the poor, the homeless, artists, families with children, the disabled, immigrants. We speak 32 languages in the Tenderloin. People with HIV, the formerly incarcerated, women, transgendered people, people living in SROs, sex workers, people of color, young people formerly in foster care, drug users, and people with chihuahuas. We welcome the participation of any individual dedicated to ensuring that the Central City be culturally and ethnically diverse, a sanctuary for the socially marginalized, a cauldron of creativity, affordable to working class and low-income people, greener and violence-free. If you want a better tomorrow, now is the time to unite for justice, equality, and solidarity. Join us. Bring a friend. Help us register, educate, and mobilize voters to build the San Francisco we dream of.
So, what makes you think that that mission statement is going to introduce some changes or awareness to
Um,
that community that doesn't adhere to anything other than what uh, their immediate interests are
Well,
concerned?
I think that's one of the myths about the people in the Tenderloin that they live in isolation and alienation, and they don't care about anybody but themselves. It's some sort of urban jungle. But my experience of the Tenderloin has been the exact opposite. I have found people there to be very caring, very concerned about their neighbors, and very involved in each other's well-being.
And how could you better anticipate participation? I mean,
I think that's a good question, and that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out. We don't. I mean, and we admit we don't know we don't have all the answers. So what we're doing is we're having a series of brainstorming sessions where we invite people to attend. We present them with the problem at hand, and then we try to come up with solutions. Inevitably, one thing that I think people always and that always comes up is that there's a need for more community building activities. That there's a need to have activities that bring people out of their rooms, and that get them engaged with other people, and to build bonds of trust and community.
and Kim, can you add anything to that? I mean, being that
Oh.
you're a resident and a senior citizen and female.
Yes. What Jesse said and what you asked about getting people involved, that is the hardest thing, because I was one of those people that didn't believe the vote counted. And I was lucky in getting connected to some of the organizations in the community, which is one of the things I think can be used and utilized more in passing around to people the importance and proof. Because I didn't believe in it, but I've testified in front of the Planning Commission and the Supervisors Board, and I've seen what a difference when a group of people come out to make a statement about the issue. And I have seen what a difference that can make. And it has proven to me that, yes, you may not believe it, but if you get informed, your vote really can make a difference.
So, what does that process, informing process look like? I mean, to what extent?
Well, something I've never seen around that I'm hoping that one of the things that we talked about is just actually going around and having community meetings, get togethers where we offer food and stuff, where we offer what the issues are, what they mean, listen to people's point of views, find out their questions. If we don't have them, try and find somebody who does. Get people interested in asking the questions to begin with and telling them about the issues. A lot of times people get overwhelmed with what all the issues are. So if we find a way to bring it out into the open in community meetings and talk about it, you talk to one person, they go back, they talk to five. Eventually, maybe we can make a difference in the information avenue. I think that's our beginning road back.
And Michelangelo, you're in there. I look at you and I see the representation of the gay community, and it's a struggle just getting them to participate in gay events. So, what makes you think that any of this is going to impress upon them the mind to impress upon them the urgency to redirect their practices and activities and apply their energies to something more concrete that's going to ensure a better and safe quality of life?
Well, interestingly enough, a lot of people don't know this, but the Tenderloin down there around Turk and Taylor, where the Bulldog Bath House is, or used to be, that was the first gay area before the Polk area, and then certainly before the Castro. So I was interested in bringing that to light and starting, or maybe I started a grassroots effort to do tours, and we had one so far, and then it's still the other effort is still in process, but we had a big turnout at that first tour we did. We had at least almost 20 people come, and interestingly enough, they were mostly coming from Oakland. We had a lot of people from Oakland, but a lot of people don't know that that area right there because of it's gotten so spotty, I would say, on the west.
What happened in that area?
Well, they said it, I guess, well, it's largely attributed to, well, it was kind of decimated mostly in the, I've heard, in the 1980s during the, that's when it got really bad. It was, it used to be just a regular working class area. Well, originally the area was the pied-à-terre for tourists to come, and it was like there, after the red light district was closed in 1917, that area, the Tenderloin, became the theater and entertainment district, and then it was largely the vice district, always the vice district with gambling and of course the prostitution, but it wasn't really to the point that it is now until I think maybe the crack epidemic of the 80s, and then of course with AIDS, the area fell into squalor.
What about wasn't there a riot there?
Yeah, in 1966, they're speaking about the riot, Compton's cafeteria riot, that's been documented in the documentary Screaming Queens, the 2005 Susan Stryker documentary. They just had the 10-year anniversary of that documentary this year. There was a riot there at the corner of Shirk and Taylor, at the old Compton's cafeteria, which was is no longer there. That business used to be kind of a haven for people to come and sit. It was a community space basically, but it was privately managed by Gene Compton, and it was a chain actually. But at that particular location, it was frequented by the locals, mostly transgender prostitutes that worked in the area, and as well as the gay youth. There was a lot of gay homeless youth that had flocked to the area at the time taking up prostitution, a lot of runaways. And so that it was just kind of like a all night, they would sit there all night and basically nurse a cup of coffee, allegedly. Apparently, and also the transgender prostitutes were harassed. It used to be against the law to wear anything on opposite your gender. So if you were a guy wearing mascara, for example, you could be arrested. And so,
well, all that history is fine and dandy. I mean, it's nice to know, but I'm more interested in what could bring out the gay community to support a ballot interest in a balloting, a voter registration that will allow them to have a voice and a place at the legislative table. That's what I think is critical at this point, because gentrification has taken root, and a lot of the trans community is being displaced.
true.
And so, yeah, the history is fine. You know, people need to know the history, and in that way they can better understand where we're coming from, the different dynamics and all that. But right now, we're living in an age where gentrification is the new sequestration and austerity policies in action.
Can I field that question? You know, history is important because it gives people an example of how people in the past have fought and won victories. And in the face of gentrification, which for many people is a very kind of despairing issue, many people assume that gentrification is inevitable and that gentrification is unstoppable. But that's an assumption that people have made about many things in the past, and then and over again, if we look at history, we see examples of people who just very normal people who were marginalized, who had no power at all, take power and actually change history. And that's why it's important, because it gives people an example of what can be done, and it helps counteract some of the despair. Gentrification is basically about money. We're talking about what we all share here is that we are people who are economically marginalized. We're poor, and poor people in this society have ever since Reagan have been demonized and marginalized. And the one thing that the Tenderloin has offered me, at least as someone who's low income, it's offered me, an opportunity to be something other than just a poor person. In other parts of the world, it's like if you're poor, you're ignored, you're marginalized. The Tenderloin, allows us to, despite the fact that we're poor, to be heard, to take leadership, to be artists, to fulfill all the possibilities that we can, to be all the things that we can be.
Well, I remember back then in the '80s, and even before then in the '70s, there was a trans community before trans ever became popular. I mean, we were out there. They were visible. They had businesses. They were in the entertainment venue. Yeah, there was those that were sex workers, but I mean that's all a part of the economy that makes up
Yeah.
the Tenderloin. But they also were political. They rallied. They supported propositions that were favorable or contrary to their beliefs or their collective community values. So I'm. It seems like something happened where they're not. I'm talking about the trans, and I'm a big trans advocate. So I'm looking at the lack of thereof, the lack of the visibility, the lack of them showing up to vote, participating in registrations for voting, privileges. They're being displaced, being criminalized, demonized, and killed. So I'm looking at that, and what I would like to know, how can we, as a body of community, Tenderloin community residents, reinvigorate or ignite that passion, that sense of belonging, that sense of community. But it's too divisive down there.
Can I volunteer? Well, first of all, I think we cannot underestimate the impact that AIDS has had on our communities. We lost thousands and thousands of people, and we will be forever recovering from that plague. I mean, gentrification, in fact, is directly related to the fact that there was an AIDS, epidemic. I mean, we saw whole, the demographics of whole, zip codes change as a result of AIDS. And we cannot, nor can we underestimate the effort to push poor people out of the city. I mean, if we've seen a lessening in numbers, it's because, in fact, we are less in numbers. On the other hand, I don't believe that we can say that the level of activism and of these communities, and by these communities I mean not only the transgender community, but I mean the other marginalized communities are I contest the statement that they're not as active. I mean, for example, did they have a TV show back then? They didn't. So there's a give and a take there. We've made advances that and, I mean, this is the fact that we're sitting here in the television show is a sign of that advance.
Okay, I'll accept that, and I would like for Kim to add in on that.
Well, that's funny because I have been around long enough to see all kinds of prejudices. Just about every kind there is now, I think. I hope I don't learn about any more. But I have seen a lot of abuse in the trans community. And now being a community leader, being a resident board um, leader, and having to represent all the people in my community now, the diversity that is here is remarkable. And I like to see that the respect that is building in this community. There have been, just in the 2 years that I have been a participant in this organization, I have seen many, many groups come together, learning about one another, and accepting that points of view have been wrong, that people who shake hands that you would never think you would. So the fact that they are coming into our neighborhood now that we're getting it together, we're a community. I see it blossoming more and more these past few months, and now they want to come in and tear us apart. Um, and that excuse me, the new word that I am learning about, that gentrification, I have to admit is a new word to me. To me, it just looks like the government comes in and wants our property, so they're going to take it no matter who's there. And that's happening too, and that's one of the things we're fighting. So as far as prejudice, unfortunately, I can admit I'm in my 50s, and I've seen it get worse instead of better. And that saddens my heart terribly. You know, I see individuals coming together and learning to accept one another and working together. But group-wise, high-up-wise, it's like stone walls. Stone walls.
You were speaking about eminent domain. That's when the government can come in. I think that's what it's called, is eminent domain. But they're not really doing that anymore, except for I think the last instance of that was the Hugo Hotel, but that was for housing, so it was okay. Yeah,
But you live in an SRO, and there's a whole lot of
there's
issues concerning your residency there.
Well,
I mean, there's some
concern.
things that you try to implement,
Yeah.
you know, and they just dismissed it.
Yeah,
Speak to some of that.
Yeah, the Ambassador Hotel where I live has been it's actually a landmark. I consider it a landmark because it's been around quite some time. Originally it was not a luxury hotel, but a fair-priced hotel, but it was a nice hotel, mid-level nice hotel. It's been around as long as since the 1930s, and then it's fell into disrepair apparently in the 60s. Started to fall into disrepair as the area around it fell into disrepair, but in the 90s, the history that I was most interested in was when it came together and served as a point for a lot of it was central as a place of refuge during the AIDS epidemic, and especially in 1994. And the manager at the time, Hank Wilson, was a big advocate for gay causes, and made it a refuge or it was a makeshift hospice. It was the first of its kind of a hospice back when the city was overrun by the AIDS epidemic, and they really didn't have this level of or a system of care. And that our Ambassador Hotel, where I live now, was a site for some of the systems that are still in place today as far as the hospice care. And so I wanted to commemorate that, and there's no record of that anywhere in the hotel. The only reason I know about that is just through my own research. And I wanted to have some kind of, at least some kind of exhibit or commemoration in the hotel, and I tried, I got a little headway with at least convincing management to post pictures in the lobby, not so much of the AIDS epidemic, but I found a 1939 brochure, it was a tourist brochure that was actually geared towards tourists coming here for the Golden Gate International Exposition, and it was just talked about the hotel's amenities, but it had lovely pictures of the hotel from the 1930s, and I thought that would be great to put in the lobby. Well, they agreed, but it's been about 8 months now, and now they're telling me they don't have the money to do that. They're just going to put it on the table or the back burner until next year. Well, that's kind of disturbing to me because it was just frames. Didn't really cost any money. So anyway, I just I couldn't believe I was just frustrated at the level of apathy or disregard that I encountered when trying to implement that. And so that's what I was shocked about, But there's a greater concern. There's in the parking lot behind the Ambassador, there's slated to get rid of the parking lot, and they're going to build a 12-story high-rise. They said it's mixed-use high-rise for housing and businesses. The housing isn't going to be low-income housing. It's going to be luxury housing, and it's going to basically. We have a pavilion, a second-floor pavilion patio that overlooks this parking lot and alternatively the rest of the city on the other side. But that's going to be usurped now by this high-rise, and that's slated to go into to development pretty soon.
Yes, I remember back in the day when the ambassador and the bistro across the street from there,
Yeah.
they were in the Hotel West around the corner, where and this was before they were titled as
Hmm.
SROs. Those were sanctuary housing for people that were impacted with
Hmm.
AIDS. So yeah, so yeah, I agree. I agree. That should be commemorated, but that's not the will of the the, the business community or those that own that property. But in the interest of time, I would like for y'all to talk about the Artist Coalition,
Yes.
the Gem of the Tenderloin, and then do some of your readings of your poetry. But you want to speak to that, Kim?
Sure. Well, the Wildflowers Institute started a collaborative, and they call it the Hidden Artistic Gems of the Tenderloin. I'm honored enough to be with a couple of people here to be associated with that. Jennifer and Hyman have succeeded in being able to pull a group of artists together that
You're
have
talking
been
about Hyman Little. The
Hyman and Jennifer. Yes, they're actually wildflowers. The wildflowers, and they have supported the artists in the Tenderloin. And just this last week, we were able to go into a cafe and perform and pull together, and it was just a joy to see that all these people came out of the Tenderloin. The house was full, and all the talent. There was one gentleman, seventh generation, and it was just beautiful. And there was many stories of the Tenderloin. Um, it was just a lot of things that people could relate to, understand, and there was a lot of good camaraderie there, and new people making those new connections. To me, is a lot of what it's about. They are sponsoring a contest where you can enter a piece of art, either written, poem-wise, essay-wise. You can do a painting, photography. Um, what else? What am I missing here?
And 7 different categories.
Yeah, there are 7 different categories. And what you do is you do your piece and then you submit it to them. And they're the Wildflowers Institute. And they're at 1144 Pacific Avenue in San Francisco, 94133. And you submit your art with the title of the artwork, the name and address of your name and address, your email, your phone number, and a brief bio of yourself. And it can't be any more than 25 to 30 pages long. And you can submit it either via media or mail, snail mail. So allow yourself enough time for that because the deadline is September 4th, 2015, 12 midnight. They will be announcing the awards in November. It is a $1,000 grant given to you, and you spend it any way you like. And for me, it'll be in a lot more art stuff. So it's just an opportunity, and it's going to be one of the first contests of that kind for me to be entering. So I'm excited to see how it goes and what the end results are going to be. I'm sure there's going to be lots of art at the end of the program that they're going to put on display that we're going to get to see, and it's going to be very, very beautiful.
Jesse, you want to add something to it?
What I want to say, I guess, about this is that the importance of the artist in the struggle against gentrification is that artists exemplify and articulate the values of the Tenderloin. And that's really what this battle is about. It's a battle of values. The people who are coming in and trying to gentrify, they have one thing on their mind, and that's to make a profit. And they'll make a profit, they'll run over anything, and they'll do anything in order to turn a buck. They don't care about the community. They don't care about the history of the community. They don't care about the people there. They don't even care about the land they're building on. They just care about turning a profit. The artists, I think, one of the things that I think that we express over and over again is that the Tenderloin is about a place where people live, have compassion, where people have a tolerance. There's a tolerance for all types of people, and there's an effort to care about each other. And those are the two contending worldviews, and
And I might add, there's a tolerance for behavior.
and there's tolerance for behavior, right? Exactly, and people are allowed to the space there to heal themselves and to get better. And so those are the two contending worldviews that are at odds with each other. And it is not only the artists. It's like, historically the area has, many nonprofit organizations who care about, who provide services, and who provide it with a sense of the dignity of the individual in mind. St. Anthony's, which has been serving meals since 1960. Glide, which serves meals to over 1,000 people a day. They do so with the integrity and the dignity of the individual in mind. Hospitality House, which is always about trying to provide programs that reflect the needs and concerns of the people it's serving. Not only are the arts important, but also economic development is important. For example, Hospitality House right now is working on a flea market in the Tenderloin, because one of the few really kind of areas of entrepreneurship that you see in the Tenderloin are people selling stuff on the sidewalk. These people are industrious. They're there every day, and they're also harassed by the cops. Their stuff is confiscated. They lose their few possessions. They're ticketed, and if they get enough tickets, then they're no longer eligible for GA and other types of government assistance. So we're hoping that we can find a place where people can come together and sell their wares and make a little money, and also, again, because it's always the end goal, is to build community, to build bonds amongst the people.
Yeah, well, that's what hospitality historically is known for. Even with their art program, they allow the artists to sell their work and keep the profit
The profits, right?
from that. So, and they've been doing that for what, 40 years?
Well, they were founded in 1967 by a group called you have to help me with this, Michael. A group of young gay men and lesbians called the Vanguard.
Vanguard, yeah.
Mike, you want to add something to that?
No, I was just.
Well, to me, I have to say the Hospitality House is the place that I found that ended up being my refuge, then my savior in a way. They have a program called Hold, Healing, Organizing, Leadership Development. And it's an awesome program, and it really takes you through the roller coaster of emotions and the healing process and so forth. And having gone through that program, it led me to the other programs that Jesse was speaking of, that they have a community organizing meeting that meets every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And we go over community issues, and the flea market is the one we're working on right now, and we've gotten so much feedback. We've not gotten one single no that there is not anybody that wouldn't love to have a flea market in the Tenderloin. And they also have a program on Fridays from 3 to 5. They have a writing class, and we do poetry. We have one gentleman who's writing a play, and people bring their poetry, and then we have discussions, and it's awesome. And they have many different other programs too, and so they were definitely my lifesaver. In fact, you asked me about my poem. When I first started writing poetry, it was all very dark because I'd been attacked several times. I'm a victim of domestic violence, which is how I ended up in the Tenderloin in the shelters, and then going through the shelters. Anybody who's been through the shelters could sit down and write poetry, dark poetry, for 10 years at least. And so they gave me the light to start writing a poetry from the heart in a way that can show what can come out of that darkness. And it's called the Hospitality House. I know a house that is hospitable. They call it a house, but it's really bigger. It's a community. I came for a visit one day to find out what their hold is. Met a guy named Joe, sharing healing stories to give hope. A man of compassion, ready to catch you if you fall. And always with open arms, he smiles and says in many, many ways, "You are special and don't you forget it." A young lady of passion for righteousness, our Tess is, young and full of life, ready to change the world she is, with a heart big enough to succeed. Vargas and Dwayne, always the gentlemen, 2 men of know and experience, but they sure are the go-to guys for feeding the hungry. So many others that come through these doors, some to help, some to be helped. Always they're spreading their endless compassion to all. So what is the hold of this place called Hospitality House? Love. They steal your heart, not your wallet, and create a revolving door so you can come back and get a hold of some more of that compassion and healing. I know because I'm one of those that came here shattered and broken, no hope for the future. But now I walk a path of conviction and righteousness to help share the healing love I know is the hold of a place they call the hospitality house. And that's real.
Yes, I concur. I found my voice there through the whole program. I am a Hold alumni. So, yeah,
Exactly.
it's very much true. Mike, you want to read your work?
No, I don't have anything to read today. I'm still in progress.
You can't call nothing from me and Mike. I've been introducing Mike and a few other artists to open mics, and I always have this problem with Mike where he has on his iPhone a whole lot of material, but he's just like hesitant to read. But he has read some very successfully across the bay and on this side of the bay as well. But I'll give him a pass today. But and Jesse is a prolific writer, published, and he's the one that heads the writers' workshop at Hospitality House.
On Fridays, that's
And
right.
and one of my early pieces was a result of participating in his workshop and having it performed at one of the Hospitality House's open mics, poetry and potluck that they have annually. Do you have anything, Jesse?
No, unfortunately I didn't bring anything to read today, but I do want to encourage people to come to attend the writing workshop. It's every Friday from 3 to 5 at 290 Turk Street. It's open to everybody of all levels of experience. So please come by.
And Kim, you don't
Well,
have anything?
that was the only one I brought for you today, George. I'm so sorry. You know, I should explain us artists. We're sitting here talking about, that we write all this poetry and stuff, and why can't we off the top of our heads? I know for me, I take it out of my head and put it on paper, even if it still needs more work on it. Because if you get one poem stuck in your head as a poet, you'll never get anything written because it'll never be perfect. So I put it down on paper, forget about it, and I'm already started on my next poem, and I got to get it down on paper. But to try and remember all of them, it's impossible.
Yeah, I understand that
I do
myself.
have another little project that's about, I guess it's about words, and we have a series of sticker campaign we're doing, and it's just little slogans. I'm not sure you can see that.
I don't think they can
Is
see that.
the first is displacement is racism. The second one is gentrification is ethnic cleansing. And then the third one is overbidding is economic thuggery. And overbidding is when there's an apartment available and people who have lots of money come in and like offer the landlord twice the amount or 3 times the amount that they're being asked for. And I contend that that's a type of thuggery. And then the other one is a question: where do poor people go? Because that is a question. Where do poor people go? I mean, people, who are moving into rich people who are moving into the Tenderloin push other people out, and they never ask themselves that question: where do poor people go?
Well, they're not interested in knowing where poor people go,
Right.
but they're not interested in providing a remedy or redress for the problem.
Right.
That causes them to be displaced.
Because if it
We all
wasn't
know
for the
it's,
San Francisco program, I mean, that's why so many people come in from out of town to San Francisco. And now while the mayor is telling everybody, get out so we can have our Super Bowl in peace.
Yeah.
When I heard that on the television, I have to say, I don't know what to say. That just shocked me. For somebody to come out and say like that. I know they take PC too far. They really do. But to literally come out and just say, we got to get rid of our poor people because it's going to interfere on how we look for the Super Bowl. And, of course, we want to look all nice for all the rich people. So I just want to say to all you out there, really think about that. I mean, seriously, I'm a good person. I worked for over 20 years in the accounting field. I'm here because of domestic violence. I'm not even a criminal. And the Tenderloin is not all about criminals. There are many, many people sitting at this table who are not criminals, that are just people that have been prejudiced against, who have had accidents and can't make money anymore because of the workplace. I could still do accounting. They won't take me because of my disabilities. The privileged really do have it good. If you're in good shape and you got money, you got it made. When you become old, poor, or different, Oh well. And I wish you people would really think about that. I really do. I mean, the mayor tried to cover up by saying, well, we want to put them in houses. Well, quit talking about it and actually do it, mayor. Do it. People talk about, politics and vote. You're in there. You're already voted in there. Do your job. Don't just talk about, well, what can we do? We put you there to do it. We already told you what to do. Get our people off the streets. Give them some place to go, that they have a nice home, that they're not on the streets causing trouble. Give us our medical care. Give us our food. That's all we're asking for. That's what we voted the politicians in there to do for us. And then you turn around and you ask us again, after we've already told you, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? How many times do we have to say it? Don't treat us like dirt. We're okay on the streets until you have something you want to do personal. A football game is more important than human life. Paper is more important than human life. You have to go by something written on a paper than to go and say, I'm the mayor, this is what I want, find me some housing for these people, period, and leave it at that and do it. It is that way. Yeah. People say it can't be done that way. That's a lie you're being fed. It can be done.
Yeah, I also want to say I've seen gentrified neighborhoods across the nation, from New York to Boston to Washington, D.C. to Austin, Texas to Taos and Santa Fe to Denver. And now San Francisco, and they're all the same. There's a monotony there that is. I mean, those neighborhoods are as same as monotonous as any suburban community, And so, are we going to sacrifice the Tenderloin, which is one of the most unique communities in the nation? Are we going to sacrifice the Tenderloin just to have another gentrified neighborhood?
Yeah, and they talk about the Tenderloin not having any value. Well, I think the Tenderloin economy has grossed over $1 billion. And then some of those institutions in there, like that prison at 117 Taylor, has grossed $1 billion this tax year alone. So it's not like there's no money in the Tenderloin. It's not like the Tenderloin don't have no financial fiscal value, but it lacks a will. I mean, the residents have a presence of mind and a will to want better and want more. But it's those that are elected that are jostling for higher office on the backs of the constituency in the Tenderloin, so they don't really get it, So unless our collective voices are heard and we unite against all odds, we will never overcome.
Well, we're making a lot of efforts. I mean, there's a real kind of renaissance of activism right now in the Tenderloin. One other thing I want to mention is on September 26th, there's going to be a street Tenderloin Residents People's Congress. It's happening on September 26th. We're gonna shut down Jones Street between Eddy and Turk, and we're gonna have we're gonna gather residents from all over the Tenderloin and South of Market and the Mid Market area, and we're gonna have a congress and try to come up with a set of goals and focus our activist energy to make some strides in the coming year.
Well, on that note, I'll close out this program. I thank my guests for coming on such a short notice. And I'm George Bracey, and this is Transworld. Good night.